Hi guys, it's Omega, and I'm in a little bit of a different angle today. I'm on this side of my sewing table instead of back in the corner. Um, my sewing room is small, but it's very efficient, so I don't mind it being small, even though it's smaller than the room I used to have. So I have to kind of get used to working in here, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't done videos where I'm actually showing you my process, the sewing or any tutorials or anything like that. It's so small in here, and of course, having to change views and that type of thing, changing the camera around and all of that. I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to do that. But I hope to eventually share sewing projects as I do it in the near future, hopefully. But actually, what I came on for today, for this video, is to tell you about a question that I had from one of my viewers. Her name is Roberta Sharp. So Roberta, this video is especially for you. She had asked about my dress form over there. And my dress form, kind of describing my use of the dress form, led to talking about fit. So, my dress form, it's one of those adjustable dress forms. It's not one of the ones that you would see in a garments district or whatever. It is one of those adjustable ones. It has dials on it that can be adjusted, and that type of thing. And what I did is I adjusted it as near to my measurements as I could. And then I got a kit actually where I was able to pad it out closer to my body. She had to be padded up a bit to fit this body. So it is not an identical match to my body, but it's close enough that when I do put a garment on there, I can kind of tell how it's going to look on me. So I don't use it for fitting necessarily, or to actually, fit my garment on it. I literally do my fitting on my own body. And I'm going to talk about that with what I'm going to show you. My recommendation is to definitely learn how to fit your patterns, how to adjust your patterns for a good fit, and how to fit as you sew and that type of thing, because the whole point of sewing is to come up with a good garment that fits you well. And that's the biggest distinction between getting ready to wear and wearing something that you've made for yourself. Now, I'm going to back up and tell you some of the challenges that I've had lately with fitting. Okay, so when I started sewing, I was pretty young. I was, I think, in junior high school. So around the age of 14, maybe 13, 14, something like that. And I'll do a video. Actually, my next video, I'll go in a little more detail about that. So you'll have to watch the next video. But when I was in the height of my sewing, when I used to sew, I used to literally sew everything, pretty much everything that I wore. And when I did sew like that, and that was up through even when I got married, I used to sew my own clothes. I used to sew for my son when he was little. I even sewed for my ex-husband a little bit. Not a lot. I didn't do a whole lot of menswear, but I did. I remember actually making him a suit once, and I think a shirt or two, and I think we did some matching shirts or something like that. But my biggest sewing was for myself, and I used to sew all my own clothes. And at that time, though, fitting my body wasn't as big an issue, so I didn't have to adjust my patterns nearly as much as I have to adjust them now. So I have had a period of time where I didn't sew very much. And what happened, part of what happened there, a lot of things has happened, you know, down through life. But part of what happened in the most recent past is that I started a new hobby that kind of stole my passion. And I did it and got pretty good at that hobby as well. And it just kind of stole my mojo for sewing. So I do paper crafting as well. And from my channel, you can probably tell that. So getting back to sewing has been over the past, I would say 3 years or so. I've kind of gotten back into sewing on a fairly regular basis. I'm really kind of getting back into it still. But once you come back from a good period of a few years of sewing, well, for me, my body change has been significant, to say the least. So now when I buy patterns, I do have to adjust them quite a bit, unfortunately. But it's the truth. My biggest fitting challenges are I'm busty on top. I can't hide it. I have to admit it. There it is. And I kind of, you guys don't laugh at me, okay? But I shape like a female snow person. So not a snowman, but Mrs. Snowman. I'm round on top, full bust, and round on the bottom, but smaller. So the funny thing about my snow person would be she would be big on top, round on the bottom, but not quite as round as she is on top. That's just how it is. Yeah. So I do have to make quite a few adjustments. Therefore, as you can see from, well, I don't show her without something on it most times because you see pretty much how I shape. But so the dress form, even though it can be adjusted, I don't use it to fit. I use several methods, and I have found several books that I kind of rely on to go to when I need to kind of fit myself. And I use the method of pretty much fit as you sew. So the primary thing with fitting is make sure that you know how to measure yourself to get the best size pattern that you can before you even begin. Now that most patterns have multiple sizes, that's really good. They used to not have that. Now that it has multiple sizes, it's much easier to adjust patterns when you have a shape like mine and where the top is a different size than the bottom, and there may be multiple adjustments in that one pattern or that one garment. So I have actually found several pattern or several methods of fitting. And I do have, and I have the books here, and I'm going to share these with you. And so what I would suggest is get one of these books that you relate to the best and use that for fitting. Most of these, or I know several of them, will give you multiple types of fittings in the one book. So you would be able to figure out how to measure yourself, get the right pattern size, and what adjustments you need to make for your figure. So I have several books here that I'm going to recommend. And this one is really a very quick fitting book, and it will have, when it's not a complicated fit, like I said, I usually have multiple things that I have to deal with, but this one is more for when you have maybe one area or two areas that you need to fit. This book is by, her name is Sandra Betsina. Couldn't remember her first name. Her first name is Sandra Betsina, and it is called Fast Fit. So So this has different fitting, let me see here, illustrations in there. And again, see the front of the book. Whereas it will, and I think it's a very good fit book, but it's the easy types of adjustments that generally you would need to make for various different areas of the body. It covers pretty much every area of the body and has simple fitting techniques in it. So I have gathered a little from that. I have another book here. A lot of these books I've just gotten, I sometimes you just come across them. This one I may have just come across from like Barnes and Noble or something like that. But this one is called Customize Your Sewing Patterns for Perfect Fit. It's another fit book. It is by Mary Morris and Sally McCann. And it features this fabric store. It used to be one of my favorite fabric stores back in Maryland, G Street Fabrics. G Street Fabrics was a fabric store in Washington, D.C. and in Maryland. I used to love that fabric store, so I do miss it quite a bit. But this is another of my fitting books. One of my all-time favorite for this again would be for fairly simple, quick fitting techniques. It covers every type of fitting issue. And this actually had, at one point, was like she was my sewing mentor. She has since passed away, and actually, while I was away from sewing and actually started getting back into sewing is when I found out she had passed away, and I was shocked and really felt hurt, or sad, that she had passed away. She was probably what I would say is one of my sewing mentors. I used to watch all of her sewing shows. She used to have shows on PBS, and I would record her shows and watch them. But this is by Nancy Zeman. She does have a website, Nancy Zeman. This particular book is Pattern Fitting with Confidence. This particular book is what she uses the pivot and slide method. You may have heard it, pivot and slide, where you take the pattern and you can pivot or turn it or slide it in such a way that you can make your pattern adjustments. Again, this is a kind of a simple technique, but it is effective depending on the adjustments that you need to do. So that's another one. But as far as sewing, general sewing, she was one of my early sewing mentors, I would say. I used to watch her religiously. Then I have a set of 3 books here that are each one kind of specializes, well, 2 of them specialize in specific items, and the other one is more top to bottom fitting. And these are the Palmer and Fletch books. I never know if I'm saying that right. But these fitting guides are kind of fit as you sew. So you have to at least start with a pattern that is, the right size for you, the right size. And a lot of people think that just your general measurements will determine your size, but that just depends. On the top, usually your high bust is the best way to measure for the size pattern you need, so that you don't have a lot of gapping and stuff in the neckline and in the sleeves and that type of thing. But anyway, these will get into that. So one of them, Palmer Fletch, this is Pants for Real People. And this will detail every kind of pant issue that you can come across. Awesome book to have in your library for sewing. Pants for Real People. And they actually have the models in there that are real people, not, you know, skinny little models, not to say anything bad about skinny people, but people that have fit issues. This will be a great one for pants. Then this is one for jackets. Jackets for real people. Again, it's the Palmer Fletch fitting book. And it is focused on fitting jackets. So that's that one. And then this one is Fit for Real People. And this covers pretty much everything top to bottom. It will show you how to slash and get that pattern just right for you. And you can pretty much, because what this method shows you is how to fit the pattern tissue on your body before you actually cut it, you know, cut out your fabric. And then you can kind of fit as you go. But it will show you how to actually, I'm trying to see here if I can find a page. Just generally, I'm going to show you this page here. But you see how she's wearing the pattern and kind of figuring out the adjustments that are necessary by actually fitting the tissue, the pattern tissue to you. They show you how to make those adjustments. There's another page. But these are my probably top fitting, is the Fit for Real People series. And then they actually have another book that I just got. I just recently actually got this Knits for Real People. I love sewing with knits. I just love it, especially with the body I have now. Knits are a little more forgiving than woven. And this is the most recent. In fact, I just got this about a week or so ago. Knits for Real People, another of the Palmer Fletch series. I love their series of fitting. And I just wanted to come on and share these resources as a, you know, just to let you know some of the things or ways that you can learn how to fit your own patterns. So that's what I wanted to share with you as far as fit goes. It's a long explanation for what I use my dress form for. I would suggest that anyone who sews, if you can have a dress form, it's a good idea. I think it helps you to have a different perspective on what the garment that you're sewing. It's much different than looking in a mirror. When I can look at my garment on my dress form, it's like another person looking at you wearing the garment. So you can see it from that perspective, you know, step back, take a look at it, see what it looks like. That's when you can get the dress form pretty much to your shape and size, and you can do that by padding it out. But what I suggest is, and I'll put links to the items or resources that I have used to pad out my dress form. And I will put the links to these systems, and any questions that you may have, I will try to just add that information to the description box if you have questions that I'm not answering in this video. So that's just a quick thing that I wanted to do so you would know the resources I use for fit. You know, when you're changing a pattern and altering it, it's time consuming. It's very time consuming. And if you're doing it with something really special, like a special piece of fabric, it is worth it to make a practice garment first. Get that fit right before you cut into your real fabric. If you'll look at my very last video, you'll see that I had a fail. And it wasn't so much, the fabric wasn't like that awesome. I mean, it was awesome fabric. I liked it a lot. But the whole thing was, I should have, in that case, I should have thought through what I was doing because of the fact I was using border print. And it just didn't come out the way I wanted it to. So that was a fail, and that happens. So that's the other thing. Don't beat up on yourself too much when you have a fail. Just it's just fabric. Get more and go with something else the next time. The only time that that kind of thinking is an exception is when you're doing something really special, or if you're sewing for someone else. I used to sew for other people too. You can't mess up. So it's much better to get that pattern right, get a good fit first, and then cut out your real fabric. That way you won't have a fail or waste. And I have had to do that many times because, when you're sewing for somebody else, you can't mess up their fabric. Just saying, especially if they're paying you. But I just wanted to come on and share that information. So I hope that was a little bit helpful. I know I went on and on and on, but hopefully that will help you a little bit decide on, whether or not to get a dress form. I do recommend it, but I wouldn't use the dress form necessarily to fit yourself. You need to know your body, get used to using the measurements. Forget about size. Measurements is what is everything with sewing. Don't even worry about the size. Just deal with the measurements and make sure you have those accurate so you can fit yourself. So that's my suggestion on fit. And I am a student of it myself. And so I hope you all are sewing and getting the results that you want as far as fit. So guys, talk to you later. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.